When Microsoft was still new to the console gaming market with the original Xbox, it seemed like the company figured they needed to have one of every type of game. They thought they needed their own 3D platformer, so they published games like Voodoo Vince and Blinks. They figured they needed their own simulation racing game, so they made Forza Motorsport. For today's game, Quantum Redshift, they believed they needed a game to compete in the futuristic hover racing type genre, to try and beat F-Zero and Wipeout at the game they had perfected over a decade prior to Quantum Redshift even being developed. So much about Quantum Redshift feels like something you'd find in a $20 budget title, especially when it comes to the game's presentation, and that's a real problem in this genre specifically. So much of what makes these games pop has to do with how they're presented, particularly in the music department. Wipeout soundtracks in particular have become an iconic part of the games, something that really lends a high-energy feel to the proceedings. And Microsoft's approach to matching this, like so many of their approaches to problems at the time, was to simply throw money at it, hiring Junkie XL to make them a soundtrack they thought would be on par. To be clear, the soundtrack is quite good, but it's noticeably low tempo, and it weirdly drags down the entire game, making it feel slower and more plodding than its competitors right off the bat. And that same tit-for-tat approach in replicating other games shows up a lot in the design for Quantum Redshift, matching every single feature that Wipeout might have, whether it's turbo, shields, weapons. In some places, Quantum Redshift feels like a blatant clone, but it does do a few things to stand out and differentiate itself. The first really truly unique thing that Quantum Redshift has is its track design. In most of its gameplay, the piloting of its ships, the use of its weapons, it is extremely similar to, borderline derivative of, Wipeout, but in its track design, it truly stands out. Both Wipeout and F-Zero have tracks that tend to be very narrow, similar to how real-life racetracks are most often laid out. Thin strips of asphalt on which the drivers race, and any derivation from which results in collision with some sort of barrier. Quantum Redshift, however, does not care for these sorts of artificial barriers and instead opts for a very wide-open design. On most sections of most of the game's tracks, if you go off the edge, you'll find yourself off the track but not out of the race, often on a patch of grass or something similar, and you'll often incur very little of a penalty. You do go more slowly, but not dramatically so. Another unique thing the game has, which was more unique at the time than it would be these days, is a persistent upgrade system. Each of the game's drivers has their own progression, and as you race more and more using them, you'll increase the damage they're able to do with weapons, the speed increase their turbo gives them, and the amount of shield they receive when they use a shield power-up. It's honestly somewhat annoying because it can keep you locked into a single driver, instead of allowing you to play around with multiple drivers, as you won't have all the same upgrades on every driver. Those unique things make Quantum Redshift intriguing, but I still personally find the gameplay of games like Wipeout and F-Zero better. They have a far superior sense of speed, the weapons tend to feel more impactful, and I tend to prefer the skill required to thread the needle, swerving along the incredibly tight tracks common to this genre, the feeling of riding right along the edge. A feeling that Quantum Redshift, with its floaty controls and wide courses, very noticeably lacks. But if you've liked some of the ideas in this genre in the past, but found the games a bit too demanding or precise for your tastes, Quantum Redshift is a perfectly serviceable alternative that might just be right up your alley. On retro reviews, I look at games that are at least 10 years old, and I see if they're still worth playing now. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.